forget. Okay, welcome to Art 116. So we've got Adrielle right there. I'm just going to do this, and Ms. Bright and Kelsey is there. Emily is there, and Riley, I think, is the last person. Yes, is there. Well, you guys certainly are able to be here and show up at the appointed time for the live stream version of the class. Have you guys made any use of the YouTube videos at all? Have you found the YouTube area in our e-learning shell where you could click on the YouTube videos and look at the presentations again? Has anybody done that? I just ask. I'm not getting a lot of views on there, but I am recording each one of these class meetings. You can always go in there to, look at the presentation. You can fast forward through the boring stuff and get to the good meaty stuff that is useful to you as an artist. Does anybody have any questions about this project at this point? I'm going to go back to my bird's eye view so that we can look down on this, and I'm going to continue to demonstrate and talk about this. But if you have a question, a comment, anything, you let me know. And here we go. We're just going to dive right back into this. I'm looking at I got the participants list up on the screen, and I'm looking at all of your names and all of your microphones. And anytime anybody, unmutes a microphone, I will shut up so that you guys can get a word in edgewise. Okay, coming back to the project here. I like to have these things on the desktop so that I can look at them. So I have, the full color printout of Cezanne's apples so that I can see the different kinds of colors and color shapes that are inside of each apple. I want to be able to see this highlight in the middle of this apple, and I want to be able to try to then recreate or do my interpretation of that highlight within that apple. And so I look at some of these things, and some of these are kind of weird modeled things. This is a really, really strong red right here through this portion of the apple, and that counts for his highlight, along with this little bit of a kind of a red-orange highlight. It's off center and it's to the left, and indeed every single highlight is off center and to the left of each spherical piece of fruit, probably with the exception of this one that has the stem end of the apple looking straight at us. This is where we've got a little bit of a highlight happening in this part of the donut to make that part pop, and even this really white highlight where he's actually is using some white paint up here makes that a super hot highlight, and that pops. And then we have a little bit of white kind of got into some of his paint over here. And so these little highlights tend to kind of dance and, do kind of an optical thing to help make the donut kind of shape of the raised portion, the crowned portion of the apple around the stem end of the apple to kind of pop forward toward the viewer. But at the same time, it's the shaded portion of the apple that's doing a heck of a lot of work too, because that also recedes away from the viewer, and it looks like it is receding into darkness. And so we want to kind of rough out wherever it's visible the stem end or the blossom end of the apple. Usually when we're displaying apples, we put the stem end of the apple up and the blossom end of the apple down. And then we have the crown of the apple is the bumpy part that is around the stem end of the apple. So I've got a little bit of this blue violet here of my color tetrad, which, by the way, it's a double split complement. I'm using yellow, orange, red, orange, blue, green, and blue violet. So I've got some blue violet mixed up right here. And I'm going to go ahead and make these stem end things. This one has just a little bit of red kind of over in the right side. So I'm going to try not to obliterate that. The red that is in the central portion here, you can barely see it on the screen, but I can see it because I'm right on top of it. And there's a little bit of red on this side, so I'm going to try not to, completely obliterate that as I play with this. And you put something on there and then you let it dry, and then you come back later on and you have to evaluate it. You say, how good a shape is that? Do I have to do something else? Just a little something else. And usually with painting, we're always trying to do some kind of secondary, third, tertiary kind of paint strokes to try to make these things work. And these are not like perfect circles of darkness here. They're always, some kind of strange shape that also has a little bit of incursions of high key colors and stuff. So they're not quite perfect circles of dark shadow. And so they're going to kind of be blobular and weird and kind of strange. And each one's a little bit different. And that's good, because we do need to have variety in the composition. If every apple was exactly the same shape, then the composition would not be interesting. So we need a little bit of variety in the composition so that each one is kind of interesting. I'm trying to do this stem end in this apple right here, which is, again, it's not quite round. And so I'm just trying to kind of be a little playful with the deposition of the paint in there to try to get that thing to look like it is a stem end that's up near the top of the apple. So it's oblong just a little bit with a little bit of reflection in the back side of the stem end. So it's kind of strange, and I'm leaving it like that. And if I don't like it, I can come back later with a dot or two of yellow orange or a dot of two of red orange to try to break up that shadow a little bit. But these shadows, I got to tell you, I've moved to this one now that's on this apple, and these shadows are just, they are definitely low key value, dark shadows that need to be kind of investigated and played with to try. And again, this one is kind of an oblong shadow that's kind of at an angle right here. And so, you know what? I'm feeling a little bit like Bob Ross right now. I'm doing my Bob Ross thing. I've got my happy apples and my happy thing. Yes, I do. So, okay, I'm looking at this apple right here, and it has its stem end is way up here at the top edge, just inside of the contour of the thing. So I'm going to do a little bit of this to try to create that place where that stem happens. The outside edge of the apple runs just past it with a darker contour line, kind of going right like this. And so that stem end is the closest to the edge of all of the apples. And that, makes it special. And so we're going to make it special too. And sometimes when your apple doesn't look round, you got to come out here and kind of find how to make it rounder and fuller looking. Sometimes the apples will look a little bit a little bit egg-shaped or a little bit not quite round. So we have to try to find the roundness of the apple. And usually that's going to be wherever, that outside contour line is or was before we completely, annihilate it, obliterate it, and kind of fill that in to kind of give that sense of roundness to the apple. And I'm going to come back here and do that over here too, because this one looks a little bit weird. So I need to make a kind of a second line here of little dots and move this contour line out to the lower and left just a little bit more, kind of reinforcing it so that this apple can look just a little bit more full. And in fact, I need to bring this up right up to the edge here because I'm not even to the edge. I'm going to move this in so you can see what I'm up to. I'm not quite out to the edge of my my compositional space right here, and I could probably fill this in with a little bit more strong, low-key shadow area. I'm going to pull that away and try to check it against this apple right here, because there's some reflected light even in the shadow of that apple, and that apple is really, really wide, and it comes all the way out and it kisses the edge of the compositional space. So that's what I'm trying to do right here, is bring that apple out here so that it kisses the edge of the frame right there. And then I think it's time for me to like mix up some green, some blue green here, and fill in my two green apples with blue green. I'm gonna come back with my face to you guys and say hi while I'm cleaning my brush and mixing up a little blue green to again check in with you and ask, are there any questions? Does anybody out there have a pulse this morning? Are you alive? Throw me a bone, won't you? Okay. I'm having fun with you, but it also gets a little frustrating when you don't talk to me. So, talk to me. I'm going right back into my thing here. So here we go. So I've put blue and green into the same puddle here. And so when I kind of do this, I am kind of mixing the blue in the green, but I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I've decided that, this is as much blue-green as I need to, and I'm getting whatever kind of blue and green I need, kind of mixing wet and wet on the end of my thing here. So I'm just going to use that as my blue-green and come in here, and I'm probably going to have blue-green and the yellow-orange kind of really interspersing almost 50-50 in these green apples. And so I can kind of leave my blue-green spots kind of with some space in between them. And then when I come in with my yellow-orange, I'm going to put those right in between all the blue-green dots to try to get this area of the green apple that's kind of, yellow orange in places and has a green kind of a cast to it. And I think that with the optical color mixing of both yellow orange dots and the blue green dots, I'm going to get these green apples to become better green apples for me. Otherwise, I've got 5 red apples and 2 green apples in this composition. And right now I'm trying to just address the problem of green apples when I don't really have a good green paint to paint them with. Because I chose blue green, as one of my tetrad colors, I'm kind of stuck with it. So I can't really mix this color green, which is a yellow green, to stick in those apples. But I needed, for the rest of the painting, either a green or a blue green to kind of do these background colors and these shadows and stuff. So I decided I was going to go with, my double split complement, so that I wound up with the blue green this time. And you can see how this blue green is really starting to kind of mix together so that it's funky. We've got, green and blue mixing together in a wet puddle here. And so it's kind of going down, and every dot is just a little bit different. Every dot has a little bit of blue and a little bit of green in it, and every dot is just a little bit more dynamic because it has that kind of happy kind of color mixing happening right inside of every dot. Now I know that in the instructions for this thing, I forbade you guys from doing any wet in wet color mixing, and that would be nice if it was even possible. But sometimes you gotta improvise, and since this is like the 10th or 20th time that I've painted this painting in this process, I'm playing a little bit more, and I invite you guys to play a little bit more too. But we still want to do it with this with Cezanne's with Seurat's pointillism approach to the actual technique of laying down the paint. So I do want it in dots. But otherwise, we are trying to prove what Cezanne was trying to prove with his painting concept that you can make color all by itself, create three-dimensional form on the painting, that you don't have to use white and black, that color itself has a plastic quality to it, that warm colors advance, that cool colors recede, that bright colors advance, that neutralized colors recede. And so that's how we get, the overall sense of, these Cezanne apples, by getting these colors to do their dance and interact with each other. This part of this apple right here has a lot of super green, pretty intense green brush strokes right in here. And I don't know if you can see that because I don't have good light on my on that picture, but I'm just going to go ahead and make this a really blue-green, densely populated area of the composition. I may have to come back here and knock it down a little bit more, but that gets me my blue-green into that apple in just that spot, which is going to help it. I think down here in that apple, there's another really strong little spot of green right there. So I'm going to come into that area of that apple and do maybe about 5 or 10 dots to try to make that one strong. And then I will come back in here with a yellow orange and intersperse the yellow orange in that green to try to break this up, to try to get this effect of the kind of yellowish green that kind of happens in this portion of this apple. So there's going to be more dots of yellow orange kind of coming into this apple and going in between the green dots, the blue-green dots that I'm laying down right now. I'm going to move over to the next apple, and I see another huge splotch of green, like right here. In fact, I just put it on there because I just touched it with my damn thing. Okay, so let's put that on there. Let's go over here and make our huge kind of dense, big brush stroke, big splotch of green right here on this painting. That's what happens when you're painting. Sometimes you paint your reference material because you get so carried away. So I've got a much stronger area, like splotch, like big brush stroke of green sitting right there. I'm going to come back to the painting, and I see another brush stroke of green kind of caressing the round shape of the apple right here. It's almost like a comma shape. And so we want to pay attention to any shapes that are curving shapes that give us a crescent or a comma shape on the apple, because those are the kinds of shapes that will reinforce the idea of a curving surface. And so I'm going to try to make that comma shape in blue-green paint, over here on this side of the apple. So I've got a curving shape here and curving shapes here. And as we get all of these kind of curving shapes and curving lines kind of reinforcing each other in the composition, we get, this idea of the apples being round. The string of pearls, the string of dots around the outside edge is another curving shape. And so we want to kind of play with the idea of curves and curving shapes, in our composition. I got to go look at this area of this shadow right in through here. And it looks like it's got a little bit more green in it than violet or blue. So I'm going to come in here and put a bit more green in here so that it's a little bit stronger in its green, so that it stands in contrast to what's predominantly a blue-violet shadow that's being cast kind of behind this apple right here. And so a little bit of green, never hurt anybody. Green, green, green. Okay, so you guys are watching this demo, and you're probably, I can't see you, rolling your eyes or anything, but I'm imagining that there's probably a lot of eye rolling going on, and I can handle it. That's okay. I'm also open to any questions that you might have at this point. I've been at this for about half an hour as a demo, and over the past 3 days, I've been demonstrating, at least an hour, hour and a half of painting. So you kind of get the idea. all of this stuff is also on recording now it's going to be on a YouTube video, so you can call this up, over the weekend. And again, fast forward through the boring parts to get to the good parts. So there's all of that. Let's see, what have I got here? There's a lot of yellow orange in this apple. This apple is a lot of yellow orange with just maybe a smattering of red dots through it. So I'm going to put a whole bunch more yellow orange in this area here, and then some red orange dots just interspersed, just a little smattering of dots to kind of break up this field of yellow orange that I've got right there. And that's what I'm going to do here. I think there's a feeling of green kind of down here, so I might just have to get the occasional green dot going, blue green dot, even in the midst of this pandemic, in the midst of this pool of light here that's in the foreground. We break it up, especially out around the edges, with a little bit of green, because this is kind of a yellow green that the artist was using originally. Lots of yellow, a little bit of orange, feels like some green or something that's also in here neutralizing it a little bit. He's painting wet and wet, so there might be even a little bit of red and green kind of drug in there together, which are giving a sort of brown. And I can't do that. I can't make brown, so I'm going to just have to bring in some of my cool and darker color and intersperse it with my lighter and warmer color, and see what I can do about putting a kind of a tiny little bit of shadow around the outside edge of this pool of yellow light here that's on the tabletop. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm putting, I don't know, 20, 30 dots of green kind of around the outside edge. And it's a little darker out towards the edge of the painting. And so that darkness is just a little bit less intense light than what is in the pool of light in the center. And as I come over this way, it gets even greener and a little bit muddier over here on this side, away from the pool of light. So I'm going to interpret that as being more green dots, because I can. And so I'm going to cope with more blue-green dots over here, and then maybe bring some violet dots back in there. And you can see that my paintbrush might not even be putting down a full round dot. I might be putting down something that looks like a hoof print from a horseshoe or something else. That's kind of fun. That's kind of cool. Your dots don't all have to be the same shape. They can look like little line segments, or little gosh, what do you call that? Sickle cell anemia cells, for blood cells, for the disease of sickle cell anemia. They don't have to be completely round dots. And so even the variety of dots, gives you some variety in the composition that you can work with. Okay, I'm looking up at the clock, and it's about 9:30. So we've been at this for a while, and I'm going to kind of bring this to a close now, because you guys probably don't have a lot of patience for just watching a guy on television painting dots onto something. So I'm going to come back to you guys. I'm going to wipe the paint off the end of my brush and come back to you with the talking head view. And here we are. So this is our project. And I've been demonstrating and re-demonstrating this, over the last, several days. And so I want you to bring yours along and try to, make some progress with yours. And maybe by Monday, you'll be able to actually show yours on the webcam, so that I can help you. I can make some suggestions about how, if you're losing the roundness of your fruit, if they're getting muddied up, I can kind of help you find the outside contours of the fruit, and kind of reinforce that with your darkest value of your tetrad. But let's see. This one is the one I did last year, and this is the one I'm working on this year. So you can kind of see that they are related. Let's see, how am I going to do this? This is this, and this is this. And I just have to make sure I can hold them, somewhat vertical or plumb or horizontal or whatever. So they have two different tetrads. And so since they're built out of two different sets of colors, they're going to have a different feel to them. And so this one that I did last year has a different set of 4 colors than this one. And then they're going to have a different feel. The way that you apply the color, the order in which you apply the dots, and how you come back and kind of make some adjustments with your dots is going to, it's going to change things, and it's going to show either how we can, fix things and make it more painterly and more successful, and show the forms more three-dimensionally, or not. And I'm here to help you find that and find a way to make them even more and more three-dimensional. So I'm going to set these down before I fall down, but that's it for now. I'm looking at your names. I'm looking at your microphones just to see if there's any questions, comments, anything for the good of the order before I say goodbye for the weekend. And I don't see you guys raising a hand or unmuting a mic. So I'm going to assume that you're okay with all of this, and that you've learned a lot today from watching me paint, which is just fine. That's good. So giddy up, get after it, and get your painting started and well underway. This painting that I'm holding in my hand is probably 2/3 of the way done. So, I've got 3 hours into this thing, but I'm also very good now because I've been doing this for a while. So, I'm 2/3 of the way done. I've still got at least, an hour or 2 painting left to go on this. So we'll come back to this on Monday. So you guys get some painting done over the weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Have a very good weekend, and goodbye for now.